New England fishermen especially are the most regulated fishermen in the world. But you, the U.S. consumer, are buying product from nations that do not abide by those regulations. And at the same time, we're getting killed for the sake of going green, but nobody else is. I grew up in a commercial fishing home on an island in Maine, Harpswell. It's a chain of islands. My father was a ground fisherman, lobsterman. My grandfather was a lobsterman. My uncle's a ground fisherman. My brother is a ground fisherman, lobsterman. Seining, sword fishing, urchin diving, shrimping, scalloping. We've done it all. We're in front of the Supreme Court right now. We're here talking about monitors and the financing and the burden that's been pushed to the fisheries to pay for monitoring aboard our vessels.
When we first started in the industry, we had to have a monitor, which was an electronic monitor on the boat to just know where we are, so like a black box. Started with the black box, and then we started getting fisheries observers.
When I was ground fishing, monitors were government agents that were brought aboard the boat to measure discards, kept catch, just overall watchers. These guys are the ones that, fresh out of college, they got a couple of weeks of training online, and then they were brought out to sea with me, where I was responsible for keeping their safety, feeding them, keeping them out of harm's way. We were in a storm off the Cape. It was probably blowing a good 60 westerly. I'd been up for 19 hours, and it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, so I laid down, put my mate up at watch for a couple of hours. Well, we were hit by a rogue wave. Literally slammed us like a freight train, picked the entire 98-foot vessel up, laid her on her side, almost upside down. You know, that lights, everything in the boat just shifted. Even the crews were laying on the walls and partially on the ceiling. It's times like those, if we had to abandon ship, and now I have to go down into the vessel to go after a child who's having a panic attack.
Monitoring at our expense, $700 and something a day. Well, heck, on a small boat, sometimes your profit is only that. So you might have a zero profit day because you didn't even cover your observer.
Well, with us, it was like $780 a day for a monitor. You know, when you have a monitor aboard your vessel, the crews aboard the boat have to buy the food. We don't get reimbursed for that food as well. That's $780 a day. Well, I can't even afford sometimes to pay my crew $780 a day, but we're paying monitors.
Observers are across the country in all fisheries. We used to get them at like a small rate, 10%, 20%. It kept going up and up and up, and now it's about 100% observer monitor coverage. Government has been threatening that we're going to have to pay for observers for many, many years. Every time they find the funding and they pay for the observers, well, they're really hammering down the threat that we're going to have to pay. It'll be too much money and not enough profit for the boats to stay and leave the dock.
The town I live in Rye, New Hampshire, is one of the first places where European settlers came and started. Everybody knows this myth about Plymouth Plantation and a little bit about Jamestown, but actually at the Isles of Shoals, there were Europeans that came across just to fish. They set up little fishing camps, dried their fish, and then they went back to Europe. We have to ask permission to go to work, and it's not so simple as I'm choosing to go today because the weather is good. I have to ask Big Brother if we can actually go to work. You have to log on to a computer, you have to hope you have a signal, and you're also paying for these services. So that is problematic in so many ways.
It's ridiculous that an Icelandic fisherman can be off the coast of Iceland catching fish, and then it goes on an airplane, lands in Boston, becomes the fish and chip special at your local restaurant, when there's perfectly good fish from the United States, caught locally, much smaller carbon footprint. A lot of the fishermen have been displaced because it's just so egregious how to go make your living these days.
We got regulatory, policy, regulation. You know, it's a full-time job, just staying on top of that, and not to being one of the more dangerous jobs in the world is commercial fishing. I mean, there's no guarantee you're coming home. So when you kiss your family goodbye in the morning, that could be the last kiss or the last hug. And what do? Well, the men and women in the fleet, we love what we do.
We're conservationists. The last thing a fisherman wants to do is run out of fish. We want fish forever, for our kids, for us. We want to make our living, make our payments, feed our families.
I mean, if we didn't care about the fish stocks or whatever species we're targeting, we wouldn't be in business.
This is something that every harvester that I've ever known here in New England, we do care about. I mean, nobody wants to kill the last fish. We want to get up, what was given to us should be given to the next generation. There was a promise given. I mean, what's in the water belongs to every U.S. citizen.